Humanity faces a choice: seek objective truth or construct beliefs that suit personal agendas. Over time, doctrines and dogmas, belief systems imposed by churches, governments, and organizations, have fragmented society into countless factions. We instinctively trust only those ideas that align with our own values, creating divisions among religions, cultures, and communities worldwide. Yet the quality of our lives depends on the decisions we make, which in turn rest on the information we accept as true. Our beliefs shape our ideals, morals, thoughts, and standards of living. To transcend fragmentation and realize our full potential, we must rediscover the universal principles that govern harmonious human existence. Nuwaupu is not another doctrine or dogma. It is a divine principle, a faculty of conscience, that invites truth seekers to examine multiple traditions without prejudice. Introduced by Dr. Malachi Z. York through the United Nubian Nation of Moors, Nuwaupu draws on verifiable history and ancient Egyptian roots, before the light or that which germinates life. Its purpose is not to discredit Islam, Christianity, or Judaism, but to restore missing pieces of the spiritual puzzle. Doctrine is a set of beliefs taught by an institution or movement, open to discussion and interpretation. Dogma demands unquestioning acceptance, often rejecting new insights. Both have contributed to disunity by overlaying humanity's innate principles with rigid rules. Doctrines and dogmas address life through a three-dimensional lens, time and polarity, where every circumstance is judged as right or wrong, positive or negative. Earth stands on the brink of a profound dimensional shift, from discord to harmony, from duality to unity consciousness. To navigate this transition with grace, we must return to the basic principles that underpin all healthy societies. These principles, discovered through experience, evidence, and reasoning, govern our thoughts, actions, and relationships. Oneness: we are all interconnected. Every action ripples through the web of existence. By acting with awareness and compassion, we honor the unity of all life. Integrity: what we say, we do. Integrity aligns our words with actions, reinforcing trust in ourselves and others. Unconditional love: love without expectation. When we give for love's sake, we open channels for peace, joy, and divine presence. Possibility: belief shapes reality. By envisioning infinite possibilities and speaking them into existence, we inspire ourselves and others. Peace: acceptance of what is. True peace arises when we release judgments of right and wrong, embracing the present moment. Care: compassion in action. Caring deeds demonstrate love more powerfully than words alone. Certainty: right knowledge fosters absolute faith. With unwavering confidence, we overcome obstacles and manifest our goals. Strategy: practical plans rooted in higher wisdom. By integrating divine insight with real-world action, we create lasting success. Freedom: observing the mind and ego without identification. True freedom arises when we witness our thoughts and emotions as an impartial presence. Pause before acting. Consider the wider impact of your choices. Honor your commitments. If circumstances change, communicate promptly to preserve integrity. Give without expecting. Notice how unconditional love transforms both giver and receiver. Visualize and declare your aspirations. Share them passionately to galvanize support. Accept reality without judgment. Cultivate inner serenity despite external fluctuations. Offer compassionate service to others. Small acts of care build collective well-being. Cultivate certainty through right knowledge. Doubt dissolves when facts are clear and convictions firm. Align long-term strategies with present-moment awareness. Balance visionary insight with practical steps. Practice mindfulness. Observe your mental chatter and emotional waves as a detached witness. By embracing Nuwaupu, we transcend the confines of doctrine and dogma. We reclaim our divine inheritance, a pocketbook manual written into every human heart, guiding us toward joy, love, prosperity, and unity. As we shift from duality to unity consciousness, we fulfill our purpose: one humanity, one divine principle, one limitless existence. Our ancestors never truly left us when they passed, though their physical forms have gone. They continue to exist on another vibrational plane that most of us simply cannot perceive. Children, blessed with more receptive frequencies, sometimes glimpse these shadowy figures: an auntie pausing in the hall, a grandfather nodding by the fire. These spiritual presences are our bloodline, deserving of reverence, not worship in the way modern religions prescribe. Centuries ago, that natural filial devotion was co-opted and demonized, ancestral spirits recast as demons to scare us away, while new doctrines urged us to worship prophets, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, strangers who never lived among us, whose interests may not align with our own. From Rome came teachings that subjugated women, From the Arabian deserts arrived laws that nearly stripped them of autonomy. In the name of piety, wives must hide their faces, walk behind their husbands, endure abuse silently or face stoning. Yet the very same men we're told to revere, because they recited prayers in a foreign tongue, are lauded despite empty character, while brothers strong in spirit but lacking Arabic fluency are dismissed as herbs. This is the peril of blind faith. We settle for spiritual mediocrity, forsaking self-empowerment in hopes that a distant deity will reward our obedience. Compare that with our ancient Egyptian foremothers and fathers, who died draped in gold, baskets of treasure buried with them deep within pyramids and underground temples. They passed on still bawling, richer in death than many live today. Yet we've been taught that pulling a few rags over our bodies and promising the next world will earn us favor here. No grand tombstones for us, just tattered faith and empty promises. The God concept offered us the illusion of aid while extracting every resource we held dear. Missionaries arrived with holy books, enthralled by our craftsmanship, our jewelry, our clothing, admiring our very creations, then introduced us to Yahweh, Allah, Christ. Entranced, we abandoned our deities and our land, handing over diamonds, gold, cocoa, oil. With every mine opened, every shaft dug, the preachers laughed, then returned for more. They taught us that spiritual wealth outweighs material gain, yet we remain impoverished, clutching worn copies of foreign texts while our natural resources flow elsewhere. We pray, they profit. We fast, they feast on our labor. They spoof their own family lines, Adam begot Cain, Cain begot Enoch, and yet forbid us images of our real ancestors. They forbid us graven images of anything in heaven or on earth, yet plaster dollars, bills, stamps, and museum walls with faces of presidents and saints. George Washington's gaze stares from your pocket, Benjamin Franklin's from your wall. We even call cotton-based paper money pickin' cotton as they solidify our wage slavery under a 2-cent bill. This godspell severs us from our true protectors, our ancestors, and leaves us vulnerable to other dimensional entities that shapeshift into the faces of loved ones, mimicking grandmother's scent, her walk, her lullabies, only to steer us astray. The only safeguard is our ancestral tongue, its tones, its frequencies, our unique vibrational signature. These beings cannot hold our language's deep resonance. It scrambles them, repels them. That tongue is more than speech. It is a living conduit of our people's wisdom, healing, and power. Today, we hear our music stripped of that soul. Where once great vocalists poured their very being into every note, now tracks feel hollow, like Rihanna, whose tone mimics European affectations, yet whose superficial sparkle outsells Beyoncé's depth, simply because listeners resonate with the familiar timbre. Once, major artists sang like priests of our language. Now they worship shallow frequencies curated by outsiders. We are more than consumers, we are creators. We once built pyramids, charted stars, composed hymns in frequencies that aligned ourselves with the cosmos. Now we buy shoes instead of making them, consume media instead of crafting stories, labor to fill foreign pockets instead of inventing industries. But the power remains within us. When we reclaim our language, we rekindle ancestral frequencies. Our dreams shift, our thoughts crystallize, our cells vibrate with purpose. We stop buying, and they begin to fear. We start making games, technologies, art, and the world recognizes our brilliance. This is our charge, to restore our connection to those who came before, to reawaken the deep tones of our speech, to reject doctrines that drain our spirit and resources, and to rebuild, with our own hands, a future worthy of our heritage. In that unity of voice and vision lies the true power of our people, vibrating, unbowed, and alive. Everyone here knows that what we eat, how we speak, and the questions we ask about our world all tie back to deeper truths handed down by our ancestors. When you compare genetically modified produce to the foods nature originally gave us, the differences are stark. A watermelon in its natural state teems with seeds. Spit one onto fertile ground and tomorrow a new vine sprouts. Walk into any supermarket today, though, and you'll find seedless varieties engineered to last longer on shelves but robbed of their natural fertility. Or consider the nectarine, a fruit that doesn't exist in nature, created in a lab by splicing peach and orange genetics. These aren't innocent innovations, they're intrusions into a perfect system, tampering with the genes God designed, genes that our bodies evolved to live in harmony with. This meddling goes beyond mere inconvenience. We see rising rates of cancer and heart disease even among those who adopt pure vegetarian diets. Our children drink milk lacking crucial fatty acids needed for proper brain development because we've replaced traditional breastfed nourishment with factory-processed substitutes. Busy parents skip breastfeeding for modern convenience, unaware they're trading irreplaceable maternal nutrients for industrial formulas. Meanwhile, corporations profit when we buy milk, buy produce, buy disease-causing drugs. They strip us of our health while we cling to promises of convenience and longevity. The antidote lies in returning to our roots, literally. Growing our own gardens, choosing heirloom seeds over sterile hybrids, nurturing our children with nature's original bounty. We must cultivate our lands and our families, rejecting the siren song of genetic progress that only enriches those already wealthy. Some speak of higher mysteries, sacred sciences passed down in hushed whispers from master to initiate, knowledge of the universe, of black holes and event horizons, of stellar portals that mirror the iris of the eye. These truths, once shared among our ancient scholars, were reduced by European usurpers to myths, then scattered and misordered so no one could piece them together. They offered 3 degrees of knowledge where once there were 9, suffocating our capacity for spiritual and scientific understanding. Yet the flame endures. Today, scholars are rediscovering the world-shaping feats of our forebears, from pyramid builders who mastered hydraulics and star maps, to engineers who designed biomass gardens and interplanetary voyages. We learn that Horus, Isis, and Osiris were not mere characters in dusty stone carvings but encoded carriers of cosmic principles, immaculate conceptions, stellar alignments, and the eye that reflects light back to us, enabling sight. We realize that Jesus, Krishna, and other savior figures share a common archetype tracing back to these ancient teachings. As we rebuild gardens that feed our bodies and speak the language that feeds our souls, we step into the roles our ancestors envisioned: creators, engineers, farmers, scientists, and spiritual beings alive in this world, not waiting for pie in the sky. We cease begging for scraps of wisdom from foreign faiths and instead open the scrolls, the tablets, and our memories to unlock the full spectrum of knowledge passed down for millennia. This is why we must grow our own food, protect our children's health, and reclaim our sacred tongue. This is why we delve into the higher mysteries, restoring the 9 degrees of wisdom that empower us to shape our own destiny. Only then will we truly thrive, as descendants of pyramid architects and star travelers, speaking the deep resonance of our people, living in harmony with the planet we were born to steward. Our bodies and spirits are governed by nature's laws, what I call natural nature, and when we stray from that, everything begins to break down. In the wild, thirst drives us to seek water, heat makes us sweat to cool off, hunger compels us to find sustenance. These are simple biological truths that no preacher or politician can alter, yet modern society has bent them to its will in ways that harm us. Walk through any African village untouched by Western influence, and you'll see people living perfectly in tune with nature. They drink from streams, grow their own food, and stay healthy on what the earth provides. Even among urbanized Africans, the ancestors' rhythms still pulse beneath the noise, but the minute you import progress from abroad, those rhythms begin to falter. Fast food replaces homegrown crops, factory-processed, genetically modified produce floods the markets, children begin life on pasteurized milk formulas that lack the fatty acids necessary for proper brain development. Little wonder that we see skyrocketing rates of diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, even among strict vegetarians who should, by all rights, be the picture of health. Our forebears never tinkered with creation's blueprint. Seedless watermelons? Lab-bred nectarine hybrids? These are devilish inventions, not nature's bounty. The designer of the koala and the shark meant each creature for a season on this planet. Messing with their genetics simply prolongs their agony, and ours. We convinced ourselves that modifying genes would make life easier and our wallets fatter, but all it's done is sever our link to the living web that sustains true health. At the same time, the architects of empire rewrote our spiritual codes to suit their ends. They dispatched prophets to each conquered realm, Aaron in Egypt, Daniel among the Babylonians, Jesus to the Romans, so that no people could claim a monopoly on divine truth. Each doctrine spoke only to its own region, its own caste of believers, so Constantine gathered them all into one sprawling text, the Bible. He stitched together Egyptian myths, Babylonian legends, Hebrew lore, Roman rituals, even whispers of Persian and Greek magic, so that every land would recognize a bit of home in its pages. The result is a patchwork of half-truths and outright contradictions, a universal spell that binds us more tightly than any single creed could. This spell of Eden morphs as we migrate from place to place. It entices Africans to hand over ancestral land for a pittance, then leaves them destitute under the guise of self-improvement. In America, we're told that if we just pray and pay tithes, God will lift us out of poverty, but the welfare state grows richer while we remain bound to programs that feed us just enough to stay alive, never enough to thrive. In the Caribbean, the same illusion grips people who juggle 4 or 5 jobs only to find themselves shackled by debt and rising costs of living. No matter where we turn, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, even New Age metaphysics or Wicca, the puppet masters have prepared a backup spell for every escape route. They coax us into one belief system, then slam the door behind us and offer another, So we remain alienated from our original connection, our own ancestral science, our own language of vibration, our own understanding of natural law. But there is hope. Our strongest weapon is our own ingenuity. When money and markets collapse, we know how to barter, to craft, to build from nothing. We outlast empires by using our hands, our minds, and our vision to forge life from the land. Our ancestors survived the Sahara and the Nile. They built pyramids and sailed by the stars. We, too, can reclaim that heritage by growing our own gardens, teaching our children the rhythms of nature, and speaking the deep tones of our original tongue, tones that reconnect us to the wisdom of millennia. When we stop paying tribute to foreign gods and foreign governments, when we cease handing over our land, our labor, and our lives in exchange for hollow promises, we break the spell. We step outside the matrix of borrowed doctrines and rediscover the universal laws that govern health, community, and the spirit. This is our calling, to dismantle the web of half-truths that has entrapped us, to heal our bodies with unmodified seeds and rich soil, to free our spirits with an unbroken lineage of vibration and language. In doing so, we honor the pact our ancestors made with the earth, and we ensure that our children will inherit not debt, disease, and doctrine, but abundance, health, and true wisdom. Martial law in our communities didn't descend from on high like an act of God. It is the inevitable result of our own assimilation into Caucasian norms and the surrender of our natural way of life to alien doctrines. We handed over our birthright the moment we allowed imported religions to dictate how we should eat, work, dress, and even name our holidays. From childhood, we teach our children myths: Santa Claus delivering gifts, the Easter Bunny hiding eggs, pilgrims bringing Thanksgiving, until they learn that the only real blessings in America come from a distant God or benevolent government, not from their own hands or their own soil. When our children grow up beset by broken promises, when they pour out their hearts in prayer and still wake up hungry, tired, or sick, they rebel. They see the hypocrisy. We preach sacrifice and obedience while the fat cats in church basements and boardrooms grow richer off our labor. They sniff out lies in the sermons we recite and refuse to follow rules they know are founded on deception. In that vacuum of trust, rebellion turns to chaos, drugs flood our neighborhoods, guns proliferate, and a generalized fear justifies ever stricter security measures. Water and toothpaste are banned from planes to prevent attacks, yet heroin and AK-47s pour in unchecked, another grotesque demonstration of whose safety really matters. We already live under de facto martial law, enforced not only by police and surveillance but by the corrosive effect of our own disunity. If we spoke our own tongue again, if we refused to let public schools mind-lock our children with centuries-old lies, metal detectors, and ridiculous dress codes, they could neither track nor control us so easily. But instead we ship our kids off every morning into gilded cages, paying for the privilege, and wonder why they come home broken. Economically, we have ceded every domain to outsiders. We allow fast food chains and sports apparel giants to plant flags in our neighborhoods, so that today we walk rent poor but sneaker rich, rent poor but Jordan's rich, never stopping to ask why we buy from them instead of building from within. Meanwhile, Chinese, Korean, Hindu, and other immigrant communities rally around their own businesses, speak their own languages, and preserve a cultural core that commands mutual respect. We let ours slip away, looking up at them in awe because we never mastered our own script, our own commerce, our own community institutions. But this decline is not inevitable. Our ancestors built pyramids, mapped the stars, farmed the Nile, and forged empires. They began as humble villages that grew into city-states and eventually entire nations, each with its own county, its own governance, its own economy. We can do the same, start by growing food in backyard gardens rather than buying sterile, seedless hybrids, teach our children the rhythms of our own language rather than the rote recitation of foreign myths, patronize and invest in black-owned businesses so they can scale from little shops to regional powerhouses. We must reclaim the psychological high ground by re-sanctifying our homes and women. Our sisters and daughters are the wellspring of community life. Once their dignity and worth are restored, the men will naturally honor and protect, rather than demean and abandon. A true provider is one who builds a household of mutual respect, not one who chases chips and credentials to prove himself to outsiders. We cannot end this cultural martial law by half measures. We must refuse one lie after another, the lie that our worth lies in borrowed symbols, the lie that salvation is a prayer away, the lie that freedom consists of signing up for welfare or tapping into government programs. True freedom, our freedom, comes from self-determination. It comes from working with our hands and minds to build things that belong to us: farms, workshops, tech startups, community centers, schools that teach our history, our science, our language. The path forward is quantum in nature. It demands that we address every facet of oppression, economic, spiritual, cultural, political, simultaneously. We must grow economically self-sufficient, spiritually grounded, culturally literate, and politically united. When we do, no external martial law can hold us down, because we will have built structures and systems that belong to us and serve our own people. This is not a fairy tale. It is the task set before every generation of our people. The same seed that sprouted the great cities of ancient Kush can grow again in our backyards. The same tongue that tuned pyramids to the stars can resonate in our schools and council halls. The same spirit of self-reliance that carved stones on the Giza Plateau can etch a new future from the bedrock of our neighborhoods. Stop looking up to borrowed gods and borrowed systems. Stop begging for scraps of recognition. Stop shipping your children to institutions that teach you to bow and scrape. We already possess the tools, our bodies, our hands, our minds, our voices, our language, and the living earth is still beneath our feet. It is time to plant, build, speak, and govern as a people who know their own worth, who know their own roots, and who refuse to be governed by anything less than the living laws of nature itself.